The alien scout ship Ravager's eye cut silently through the void, its black hull absorbing the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, the crew's voices were low, almost cautious, though they would never admit fear. The captain Varen Tor sat in his command chair with his 4 eyes fixed on the forward viewport. Beyond it, the starfield glittered with cold beauty. Somewhere ahead, invisible to the naked eye, but known to every spacer in the galaxy, lay the most dangerous boundary, in known space-human territory. Every training academy, every military archive, every veteran's story carried the same warning: do not cross the human border without permission, ever. Yet here they were, flying toward it, not by accident, not out of ignorance, but they were here. Because Varan believed the stories were exaggerations, myths told to keep alien powers away from a prize too valuable to share. The ship's sensor officer, a thin, nervous Dreven named Salvik, adjusted his console. "Captain, the warning beacons are live, picking up automated broadcasts in standard galactic. Repeating on all channels, restricted space. Trespassers will not return." His voice cracked slightly as he read the words aloud. On the screen, the message flashed in a dozen alien languages. The humans weren't vague. They didn't give second chances. The warning was not a suggestion, it was a promise. Varan barely glanced at it, noted he said flatly, "Increase speed." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Ravager's eye was a small ship, fast and quiet, perfect for slipping past border patrols. That was the plan. No human vessel had been sighted this far out in months. The captain's sources claimed the patrols had thinned. It should be easy. But as they closed the distance, Salvik's console began to behave strangely. The stars ahead, moments ago, were fading from the sensor display one by one, like candles being snuffed out in the dark. "Sensor glitch," Varen muttered, but Salvik shook his head. "No, sir, it's like the space ahead of us is being erased." Then the ship's comm system crackled. A faint, distorted human voice spoke a single sentence in perfect Galactic Standard. "You are in restricted space. You will not leave." The words were soft, almost calm, but they froze the blood of every being on the bridge. The transmission cut abruptly, replaced by silence. Varen's jaw tightened. He gave the order to change course, to test if the voice had been a bluff. But the navigation display no longer showed their entry point. Star systems behind them were gone. Not physically destroyed, just gone from their charts, replaced with blank black void. They could not plot a return route. It was as if the space they had come through no longer existed. They pressed on. Maybe it was a human trick, a way to disorient intruders. The Ravager's eye had advanced navigation AI, hardened against jamming. Yet every recalculation produced the same result: forward was the only option. Hours passed. The crew grew restless. Some whispered about turning off all systems and drifting until rescue came. But everyone knew no rescue ship would dare cross this border. They were alone. Then came the signals. At first, faint bursts of static. Then, clearer transmissions, human voices speaking in different tongues. Old Earth dialects that no alien could understand, but all found unsettling. A woman's voice laughed softly in one channel. A man whispered something that made Salvik's frills twitch. The voices overlapped, layered on top of each other until it was impossible to tell how many there were or where they came from. None of the signals appeared on sensors. It was as if the Ravager's eye was surrounded by ghosts. The engineer, a broad-shouldered Kari named Drask, reported sudden power fluctuations. Lights dimmed and brightened. Gravity shifted under their feet. The environmental systems began to pump air that tasted faintly metallic. "We're being probed," Drask growled. "They're testing what they can take from us without triggering alarms." Varen ordered all defensive systems online, but when the weapons powered up, every targeting display went blank. It wasn't a malfunction. The ship's computer simply reported no valid targets. That was when they saw it. Salvik gasped and pointed at the forward viewport. A shadow, vast and formless, moved across the stars ahead. It wasn't on sensors. It didn't appear on radar, but it was there, blotting out entire constellations. Slowly, it resolved into a shape long, angular, bristling with dark towers and weapon arrays. A warship. Human. Completely silent, drifting without visible engines. Yet keeping perfect pace with the Ravager's eye. It was close enough now that they could see faint lights along its hull, pulsing like the heartbeat of some immense predator. Open. A channel, Viren ordered. They sent a hail. No reply. Another. Still nothing. Then, without warning, the human ship's lights shifted one row after another, forming a single line across its hull, aimed directly at them. It was not a weapon. It was something worse. A signal. An acknowledgement. The humans knew exactly where they were, what they were doing, and they were letting them know it. In the silence that followed, no one on the Ravager's eye dared to move. Varen sat frozen, calculating whether to run, or speak, or fight. Before he could decide, the human warship began to turn not toward them, but away, drifting slowly into the darkness. An invitation or a trap? The crew looked to their captain. His decision came with a slow, deliberate breath. "Follow them," he said. No one argued, though every one of them felt the same dread curling in their stomachs. The warship moved ahead, leading them deeper into human territory. The beacons were long gone now. The stars seemed fewer and dimmer. The blackness around them felt heavier, thicker, as if the void itself were watching. As the gap between ships closed, Solvix. Console flared with an incoming signal. The screen flickered, showing static. Then a new image. Not of the warship, not of space. It was an alien vessel, battered, broken, drifting. Its hull was scorched. Its running lights were dead. Across its surface, deep claw-like gouges marred. The metal, though no living creature could have made them. A short burst of audio followed, an alien voice, frantic, gasping for breath. "They don't take prisoners." The transmission cut. The drifting ship vanished from the screen. Solvik swore softly. No one spoke. The human warship slowed, as if waiting for them to catch up. Captain Varone gripped the armrests of his chair. The crew knew, without speaking, that they had already gone too far. Whatever lay ahead was no longer about exploration or trespass. They were in the hands of something older and far less forgiving than any empire they had known. And as the Ravager's eye followed the silent warship into the deep black, the last stars ahead winked out one by one until the only light came from the humans themselves. The silence in the command deck of the alien vessel was suffocating. Captain Vrak stood rigid, his clawed hands tightening against the railing as the human warship loomed larger on the central view screen. It had not fired yet, but every instinct in his body screamed that the humans were not waiting out of mercy. They were waiting because they wanted him to know he had already lost. Around him, his crew whispered in hushed, fearful tones, their eyes flicking to the cold, metallic monster ahead. No lights marked the warship's hull, no insignia gave away its identity. It simply existed there in the void like some ancient predator that had already chosen its prey. The navigation officer swallowed hard. "Captain, it's not answering our hails. Every attempt is being blocked." His voice cracked, and Vrak could hear the tremor in it. In their culture, it was rare for an officer to show fear so openly. But then again, few had ever seen a human warship this close and lived to tell the story. Vrak's mandibles clicked in agitation. He had heard the stories, rumors that humans had ships built not just for battle, but for annihilation. Machines designed to end wars in minutes, not hours. But surely that was just exaggerated propaganda from frightened frontier species. Surely. No single vessel could hold that kind of power, and then the warship moved. It was subtle, just a shift in position. A slow roll that brought its forward batteries into perfect alignment with his ship's bow. No comes, no demands. Just a silent statement, "You shouldn't be here." The alien crew froze, and Vrak felt the temperature in the room drop. "Raise shields," he ordered sharply. The defensive systems hummed to life, their energy fields wrapping around the ship like a fragile bubble. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't matter. Shields only worked against weapons that followed predictable physics. And humans, infamously, didn't always fight by the rules. "Captain," tactical officer said quietly, "we're detecting something odd. Their weapons are cold." That made no sense. Weapons systems should emit detectable energy spikes when powered, but this ship was giving off nothing, as if it wasn't even preparing for battle, as if it didn't need to prepare. A memory stirred in Varric's mind, an old briefing from the early days of human expansion. They didn't always fire first. Sometimes they let their prey run, tracking them for days, weeks even, before striking when escape was impossible. But then, without warning, a single pulse of light flashed from the warship's hull. It wasn't a weapon strike, at least not in the traditional sense. Ship's systems flickered instantly, alarms screaming through the bridge. Every display went black for a fraction of a second before rebooting, and the crew shouted over each other in panic. "What did they do?" someone cried. The engineer's answer was grim. They erased our targeting matrix. Weapons are offline. The humans had just disarmed them completely without firing a single shot. Vrac's heart pounded. This wasn't war. This was control. Whoever was commanding that ship wasn't here for negotiations. They had already decided how this was going to end. Slowly, almost mockingly, the warship began to drift closer, its hull eclipsing the stars. Behind it, from this distance, its surface looked like black stone, absorbing every glint of light. No design was visible, no windows, no hangars, just an endless wall of shadow. A soft chime rang on the bridge, and for the first time, they received a transmission. It wasn't a visual Fedonia voice, human voice, calm, unshaken, almost bored. "You have entered restricted human territory," it said. "You will now alter your course and prepare for extraction. Resistance will not be tolerated." Vrac's throat went dry. He could barely speak. We didn't mean to you." "Did?" the voice interrupted. No anger, no shouting, just certainty. That was worse. A quiet enemy was more dangerous than one who raged. For a moment, Varrock considered running. The navigation charts showed an escape vector if they diverted all power to engines. But as if reading his thoughts, the human voice spoke again. "Your engines are already compromised. Do not attempt to flee." The alien captain's stomach sank. They had known his every move before he made it. Outside, the warship's forward bay began to open, slowly, deliberately. Inside was not a barrage of weapons, but a strange, silent black cylinder. It detached from the ship and drifted toward them with mechanical precision. Sensors couldn't even identify its function. That, more than anything, terrified him. The crew waited, breathless, as the object stopped just meters from their hull. Then, with a single silent burst, it attached itself. Lights rippled along its surface. "You're to do." In that moment, VRREK realized the humans weren't going to fire at all. They were going to take them, and no one ever returned from a one-way journey. The moment the black cylinder latched onto their hull, the alien ship's lights dimmed again, but this time, they didn't come back. Every display, every control panel, every emergency backup dead. The bridge was drowned in darkness, except for the faint red glow of auxiliary life support. It was as if the humans had simply reached inside the ship's heart and stopped it. From beating, no weapons, no damage, just silence. Captain Vrac could hear his own breathing, too loud in the oppressive quiet. Around him, the crew spoke in tense whispers, as if raising their voices might somehow make things worse. The ship was adrift now, powerless, and at the mercy of whatever waited outside. In the blackness beyond the viewscreen, the human warship lingered, unmoving, its presence like a shadow that refused to fade. The cylinder pulsed with a slow, steady light, almost like it was breathing. Then a sound filled the bridge. It wasn't a voice, not yet. It was a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in their bones, bypassing ears entirely. Some crew members flinched, others clutched their heads, grimacing in discomfort. It wasn't painful exactly, but it was deeply unnatural. Suddenly, the hum stopped. A second later, A single beam of light shot out from the cylinder, scanning across the bridge. Wherever it touched, systems flickered briefly to life, only to die again instantly. They weren't restoring power, they were mapping the ship. Every console, every control, every life form was being cataloged. "Captain," the science officer's voice trembled. "They're inside our network. Every file, every communication, even the encrypted ones. They're copying everything." Mandibles tightened. The humans weren't just intercepting their mission, they were stripping it bare. The trespass wasn't over. It had only just begun. They would know why the ship had entered human territory. They would know who had ordered it, would know every secret the crew had ever carried. And then the voice returned, still calm, still terrifying. "Extraction in progress. Do not resist." Before Vrak could reply, the beam shifted, widening until it engulfed the entire bridge. The red glow of emergency lights was replaced by blinding white, and for a split second, everything froze. The captain's vision went black, not the black of darkness, but the black of absence. When his sight returned, he was no longer standing on his bridge. The crew was gone. The ship was gone. Vrak was standing in a massive, dimly lit chamber. The floor beneath him was smooth and metallic, and the air was unnaturally still, carrying no scent at all. Around him, other members of his crew appeared in flashes of light, their faces pale with shock. Above, high in the shadowed ceiling, faint shapes moved, humanoid outlines, watching silently from platforms. A single human voice echoed through the chamber. "No source, no visible speaker. You have violated human sovereign space," it said, the same calm tone as before. "Your vessel has been claimed. Your data has been secured. You will now answer questions." Vrak's instincts screamed at him to resist, to fight, to hold back anything that could endanger his homeworld. But he couldn't even see who he was speaking to. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, surrounding them completely. One of his officers shouted, "We crossed the border by mistake." "We," the voice interrupted. "Your navigation data says otherwise." Another crew member tried to run toward the nearest wall. But the instant they moved, a narrow beam of light shot down from above. It wasn't heat. It wasn't electricity. But the crew member froze mid-step, body locked in place like stone. Then they were simply gone. No scream, no flash, just erased from the chamber entirely. The silence that followed was absolute. Vrak realized then that this wasn't an interrogation chamber. It was a sorting room. The humans weren't interested in diplomacy. They were deciding who would leave and who would never be seen again, and no one could guess which fate they'd choose. The chamber was cold, but the chill wasn't just from the air. It was the weight of absolute control pressing down on every breath. Captain Vrak stood rigid as the invisible voice continued, its tone steady, emotionless, like the voice of the universe itself. "You entered human space knowing the risks. You crossed borders sealed by countless treaties and warnings. Yet here you stand." He tried to find one of the watchers, those shadowy humanoid shapes moving silently on the platforms above, but the chamber's light bent strangely, hiding all faces. It was as if the very room conspired to hide the truth. Vrak's voice was steady but filled with defiance. "We came in peace. We sought only knowledge." A pause. Then the voice replied, "Peace is a choice, a privilege. One you gave up the moment you violated the boundary." Images flickered suddenly in the air, around them holographic screens, showing scenes Vrak would never forget. His ship's route through space, communications between his crew, secret logs, encrypted messages, hidden orders all laid bare. Every moment recorded, every decision watched. It was as if the humans had been with them from the start. Reading their minds and files, another screen showed a line of alien ships, floating lifeless in dark space ghosts of other trespassers. Some had tried to fight, some had begged, none had returned. Their hulls were shredded, their crews vanished without a trace. Vrak's mind raced. The stories were true. The humans were not just defending their space, they were executing anyone who crossed it without permission. "What do you want from us?" he finally asked. The answer was simple. To protect our home, to send a clear message, you trespassers will face one of two fates. Join us as allies under human law or vanish like the rest. Shock rippled through the alien crew. Join humans, accept their rule. That was unthinkable. Yet the alternative was even worse. Disappearance, erasure, silence forever, as if reading their thoughts. The voice continued, your technology, your knowledge, your species, these are valuable. You will serve a purpose. Refusal will mean oblivion. A part of Rack fought to resist, to rally his crew for escape or battle, but the humans had anticipated that too. The ship's AI, still connected remotely, began disabling their weapons, locking controls, sealing airlocks. The room darkened suddenly, and the voice softened just a little. There is no escape. There are no exceptions. The weight of those words crushed any hope of negotiation. Rack realized humanity had rewritten the rules of war. This was not a battle for territory, it was a complete takeover. An ironclad decree from the most ruthless species the galaxy had ever faced, and the aliens were trapped. Caught in a trap they never saw coming, in a zone where their survival was no longer a question of strength, but of obedience. The chamber shifted. Walls that had once felt solid suddenly dissolved into a vast starry void. Captain Vrack and his crew found themselves standing on a massive platform suspended in the endless darkness of space. Around them floated dozens of ship-sailing vessels from many species, all motionless, lifeless, yet perfectly preserved. Hulls gleamed dimly, scarred by battles long past, or stripped clean by time and silence. These were the ghosts of trespassers before them. Vrack's eyes scanned the scene, his stomach twisting. Each ship told a story of defeat, a history written in cold metal and broken dreams. Some were still locked in battle formations, as if waiting for an attack that never came. Others had opened their airlocks wide, perhaps hoping for rescue that never arrived. But all were prisoners of human will, floating in eternal exile. A soft voice echoed again the same calm, unyielding tone that had become their constant companion. These vessels and crews failed to heed the warnings. They entered human space without permission. They were given the choice and refused. Their fates serve as a warning. Vrack swallowed hard. What do you want from us? He asked, the weight of desperation heavy in his voice. To serve. To obey. To become part of the order that keeps this galaxy safe from chaos. You will share your knowledge, your technology, your skills. Refusal means joining them. The reality hit the crew like a hammer. To survive meant submission, sacrifice, and forever leaving their old lives behind. Many looked to Vrack, their captain and symbol of hope, expecting him to speak, to lead a rebellion. But even he felt the crushing truth settle in. The humans were not interested in negotiations or alliances. They offered only obedience or oblivion. One young officer dared to ask, "Why do you not simply destroy us? Why keep us alive?" The voice answered, "Destruction leaves questions unanswered. Control is absolute. Your survival ensures the galaxy. Remembers the cost of trespassing. Your obedience is proof that no one crosses human space unpunished." As the platform began to fade back into the walls of the chamber, the alien crew felt themselves drawn together, trapped by a fate darker than death. Their only choice now was to decide how much of themselves they would surrender on, how much they could live with losing. The chamber's light dimmed once again, wrapping the alien crew in shadows that seemed to swallow their hope. Captain. Vrack stood alone at the center, the weight of 1,000 silent eyes upon him as he could not see, but deeply felt. The voice spoke one last time, calm and unyielding. Your choices have been presented, compliance or oblivion. There are no exceptions. Vrack's heart hammered against his chest. He thought of his home, his people, the life they had known before crossing the forbidden line. He thought of his crew, brave, loyal beings who had trusted him to guide them safely through unknown dangers. Yet now their fate rested not in their strength or courage, but in submission to a power they barely understood. Desperation pushed him forward. We offer you peace. Technology. Alliance. Help us understand.
Oh.
Let us prove our value." His voice echoed, fragile but determined. For a moment, the silence was complete, and the voice responded, colder than any void, "Peace is not earned through words. Alliance is not granted to trespassers. The humans seek order, not charity. You trespassed, knowing the cost. Now accept it." Behind Vrak, the chamber walls flickered, revealing a massive warship, larger than any the aliens had ever seen. Its black hull was etched with scars and the glow of countless battle systems. It was the symbol of the humans' iron will and yielding, unstoppable and merciless. The captain's mind raced for options. But as the humans began overriding the alien ship's controls remotely, Vrak understood the final truth. Their engines powered down, their weapons locked. The ship was no longer theirs to command. "You will be towed to a remote world," the voice said. "There you will live under human supervision, learning your place. Resistance will be ended." Crew looked to Vrak, fear and defeat in their eyes. Yet some held on to the faintest flicker of hope that maybe one day they could reclaim freedom as their ship slowly began to move. Drawn by invisible chains into the cold unknown, Vrak whispered, "This is only the beginning." But the galaxy already knew. No one who entered human space without permission ever returned.